Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So Super Skrull's buff is live. It kind of came out of nowhere. We had no idea he was going to get buffed, and in reality this is going to be, I know, a shocking reveal. They barely did anything. If you liked Super Skrull before, you're still gonna like him. There is one thing that's kind of tricking me up from his pre-buff version that you need to get used to. Other than that, he just got to be slightly more effective. As in, not much has changed other than you need less of the specific buffs to kind of trigger his abilities, and his effects are passive now, and the energy vulnerability lasts longer, which does kind of mean he has a bit more damage. Well, he does. Anyways, let's get to the business and see how pre-buff Super Skrull behaved, and what was his kind of like base generic rotation. I actually had a 6-star rank 5 Super Skrull from way back when we used him in Alliance War Defense, and I just ascended him as well. So this is the 6-star rank 5 ascended Super Skrull pre-buff. And you can notice that he actually can do quite well. The most straightforward and kind of like short fight rotation for him is get 5 armor ups, and then once you do have the 5 armor ups, well, you need 4 or 5 armor ups. You do that by basically parrying 5 times and maybe squeezing in a medium in between. Then you need to drop your level 2 before that timer up there expires. And now that that has happened, you just need to build up as many Furies as you can. So don't take any hits in a block. Get up to ideally 10 Furies. And then you're going to get your no fists, and then every hit is going to inflict incinerate, and you have more Furies in general, so that kind of gives you more damage. And I do have my energy vulnerability here, so my incinerates were doing more damage as well. And here we can see that like with one kind of like proper full set rotation here, I effectively have gotten down 80% of Winter Soldier's health, even more, 85%, which would account for over 400k damage. And anything like in, Battlegrounds range and stuff like that, just about would be dead here. These final few percent are fairly slow, because, my damage loop, damage cycle has ended. So in essence, in order to do good damage, I'd have to do everything all over again. And then, I did a few more fights, and I can scroll fast forward here against Winter Soldier. I think the fastest time that I got was about 1 minute 20. I'm sure you could do it like a little bit faster. I'm not like the best Super Skrull player in the world, but for the most part, 1 minute 20 I think is a very solid line here. For this match, we're going to see again, getting in my damage loop here, how my no fists active, all of that good stuff's happening. Winter Soldier is about to get cooked completely and fully. I do actually want him to miss, and here goes the miss. Now I have energy vulnerability. I can activate my level 2 again. And we can see, again, very consistently with that single same rotation, he effectively goes to 15-10% health. And then, again, my damage mode has expired, and I just need to finish off the fight however I can, because then your damage drops off astronomically. So he definitely has fairly lump-sided type of damage, where you do have your damage window, and if you miss it, you basically have no damage. And that's going to be one of the things that we kind of talk about later as well, where can't really get much of his utility necessarily always going, or at the very least, let's say, reliable vigilance if you do want to go for damage, which is like a big downside. You can adjust for it though, but here we can see that this is post-buff version, and it effectively plays exactly the same. The only difference is I don't need to be as surgical with my buffs. I have a bit more room for error. As long as I have 6+ Fury buffs, I will be getting the no fist. So that opens a bit of variation where you can get, 3 armors and 6 Furies, and you can get a few more effects unlocked for him. But keep in mind that the less Furies you actually have, the less damage you're going to get. So here, again, I do have my 8 Furies. And I activate my level 2, so I have my 9 Furies, and we are dealing damage. So this wasn't like necessarily as clean as ideal. But basically the fight time, I would say, has gone down from minute 20 to about a minute. And now you're like full reach, just about finished the fight. Realistically, I think it's about 10% damage increase, but just the way his damage works in this fight in particular, it's like 20-second increase. And you will kind of be able to stretch further with that same rotation, which obviously is good. That is what you want. But the real difference in damage output, I don't think, is as high as Dammer indicates. Again, just by the nature how he deals that damage. One thing that really kind of catches me off guard is that Falter now triggers in hits on block as well. That is better for him as a defender. It's kind of worse for him as an attacker, I would say. Because it can mess you up and you do need to keep an eye out for it when you're expecting to parry and you don't, and then you immediately strike the opponent and either get smacked in the face or, you know, get a fury when you didn't want to get one. So as an attacker, it's not necessarily the best thing in the world. As a defender, it just will make him slightly more annoying if you can't parry him. If you can parry him, it's not going to change much. And here we go. This is going to be like CMM fight, and again, we're finishing everything in this one set rotation. That's like 58 seconds. So that is the difference there. So we're going to pause this for a second. And ultimately, that means, you know, he's slightly better than he was, but with just about all the quirks. One more thing that they did change him, aside from increased energy vulnerability and needing less buffs to trigger his Nova Fists, is that against tech champions he inflicts Snow Flames, and that unlocks a few matchups. Unfortunately, only hardly any of those matchups are, you know, really relevant. If you take a look at Aunt May, it's Fam that he can do better now because it's not Incinerate based. And then another champion that you will find it useful is kind of like Penny, I would say. So it's Penny and Fam that he can do now that he couldn't before. And yes, before somebody jumps in at me, you know, he can do Prowler now, and he couldn't do that before. He can do Jack-O-Lantern now, he couldn't do that before. He can do Iron Man Infinity War, he couldn't do that before, and Arcade. So, okay, so it's 3 defenders, but realistically, like Prowler and Infamous Iron Man matchups and stuff like that, they don't really matter because they're not defenders. But they did effectively give him 3 more defender matchups that he couldn't do before. Penny, Arcade, and Ram. So it's kind of neat against like little broader matchups. Overall, though, I'm not entirely sure how many defenders you would actually want to be using him. Because even against like Penny, you do kind of have to alter his rotation because you do need to get rid of the shield, otherwise you will end up taking quite a bit of damage. And now that you do have the 5 Furies, you do get the Undermine. So at this point, Undermine's active, and that means, you know, even the shield, if the shield would be up, I can still hit through that. So with a slight adjustment of the rotation, he's like fine doing this matchup. He's not going to be like the speediest again, just because now you kind of end up doing level 1 and then level 2, but you miss out on damage basically from your ideal rotation. Here we can see that she tried auto block, it didn't work out, and now I have level 2, and I'm going to use Falter to get that opening, and there we go. So, you know, Penny matchup's fine, tested it out, and somebody like Arcade as well, something that he couldn't do before that he can now. I don't think he's like the best Zola counter, and he's not great for Soul. We're going to get to that point again. But again, Arcade is perfectly doable now. Keep in mind that the block damage is exaggerated in these, because I'm using like 5-star rank 3 against 7-star rank 3s, or, you know, 6-star rank 5 ascended champions. So generally you wouldn't be getting as much block damage. I did make a wee tiny mistake here, but I promise you rest of the fight is going to be sweet. But there we go. So I do want to bait out at level 1. This is, by the way, kind of a trick to deal with Arcade. If you can dash in and out of his special, you hardly ever have to deal with his auto block. So I don't need to dirty my fight with those heavy attack knockdowns and stuff. And now we're going to see that, yeah, we're kind of laying into that Arcade. His health is going down fairly well. So again, when he does get in his damage cycle, his damage is actually quite nice. But it always was, in truth. Because like, if he had a 7-star Super Skrull and somebody would take him to like rank 3, rank 4, I bet even pre-buff version would make like quite a few people impressed. But now he is a bit easier to use. Again, Red Skull, again, he's not necessarily the champion that I ideally want to use for Red Skull, right? But he does have that Undermine, so it kind of helps out a bit. But it is a bit finicky. Animations make it a bit tricky as well with the level 1 punish. just, you know, spacing on the map. But here we go. So we do want to use the heavy knockdown here. I am at level 2. He's still... You have to know exactly what you're doing. I'm going to describe him like that. If you want to be using Super Skrull, you have to know exactly what you are doing and what you are trying to achieve. And ultimately, which I think is going to be his downfall. If he would be like easier champion with easier rotation, and perhaps, you know, a bit more utility, I think he would be like a very, very solid champ that I would like a lot more. And I have tried to like Super Skrull a ton, trust me. But the reality is that he's just not that guy. And part of the problem here is that in general matchups, unless you want to forfeit a fair amount of damage, you have to start the fight out with like 5 parries. And there are plenty of nodes that Kabam, you know, hates for champions to parry. There are plenty of opponents that you don't want to be parrying against 5 times. And then I kind of feel like he has plenty of inherent weaknesses in matchup lists himself. Like if you would, like obviously tech class, for instance, you know, I don't think you'd particularly want to use him against Solvar because he doesn't like energy dot and you take damage back and you'd supercharge him. I'm not entirely sure what Zolo matchup. I think it's doable. I think it should be okay-ish if you, again, are quite good. I actually need to check if you can punish Zolo's heavy attack. I showed some of the tech defenders that he would be able to do, but in like literally none of those matchups he would be like a preferred go-to option for like the fastest fight or the most amount, the easiest or the fastest fight. So going in other, you know, champs like Domino, you don't want that against, you know, Captain Britain. I doubt that you would want to use him either. Using him against Onslaught, definitely not. Using him against Mr. Sinister, definitely not. So I don't think he goes across the platforms well, for instance. You know, Spider-Woman, no. Photon, you don't want to be parrying that much against Photon. There's going to be a ton of block damage. Mystics are obviously going to be a no-no. Skill, he doesn't have anything against like Bullseye. He doesn't have, you know, capacity to do Yelena either. So I think his matchup list is fairly narrow. So on that basis alone, I think he's still mid. I kind of want to like the guy. Still gonna be mid though. I do think that under specific sets of nodes, he could be good. I did have to test a few things with him out here, and I used like a random low rank Sauron here to test it out. And the most crucial thing is that if you dash in the middle of his level 1, you still get rid of Falter. So that is an easy solution for any stun immune fight as well. You just kind of basically want to make sure that whenever Falter comes, he has that bar of power and you would be set. And that only is relevant if you can't parry stun him. But if you're stuck in a place where you have that Falter on you and you can't parry stun him, then it could be some defensive annoyance there. I think with some extra power gain or some other specific nodes that reward like a ton of buff gain, he could be decent. Some armor up nodes perhaps, because you know he's guaranteed to get armor ups as you strike him. So that potentially could be helpful. But then again, so many of the Mystic champions would still probably just walk all over him. But yeah, this was one of the things that I definitely wanted to test. If you run in the middle of a special attack, can you get rid of the Falter? And you can. And since that's the case, again, he's a tiny bit defensively more annoying. But overall, it's not by much. Oh, one thing, because everything's passive, you don't get any willpower heal anymore, because I used to use this guy as a free willpower healing machine. But fair enough. So that's taken away too. Yeah, so I mean, it's neat, it's fine. I just don't think it's gonna change anything really for the guy. I might be wrong. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about